Living in the Woodlands, Texas, what nobody tells you and what might surprise you. We are John and Nicole Carty, local realtors in the Woodlands, Texas, and we love this neighborhood. We love the community. We love everything it has to offer. And we have a lot of relocators that get caught off guard. So we just want to share some inside lifestyle, real life information, the good, the bad, the ugly with everyone.
Yes, we'll jump right into it. So the Woodlands, unlike some towns where they are named a little bit differently than what you would actually expect for the name, the Woodlands is the Woodlands. There is no joke about the trees. There are trees everywhere. It can actually make it kind of hard to find things like gas stations. Some of the strip centers and boutiques, you do have to pay attention to your GPS sometimes. They purposely developed this to help you feel like you are really just enjoying your surroundings and the trees, and it's not a concrete jungle, but it does kind of feel like a jungle with the trees. It does make it beautiful. We love it. We are all about the Woodlands, but that can be an adjustment whenever you first come visit. Sometimes you might pass up something from a light or two, not having known the place you're going to is a few streets back just because of the trees, but we think it's a plus.
Yeah, it's definitely, if you hear big city suburb, you're probably thinking extension of the concrete jungle. The Woodlands is nothing like that. It is truly mature trees everywhere, tree-lined streets, and they're big trees, right? Big cypress, pines, oaks. So yeah, that's definitely something that some people are just amazed. Wow, this is Texas? It's just trees. It really feels like you're in a forest. Another thing is the different villages. There are 11 villages that comprise the Woodlands. They can all feel very different. Whether you're north side, whether you're east right by I-45, or your creek side, which is more southwest, they're gonna have a very different feel based off of the age of the village, proximity to the highway, and just kind of the lifestyle amenities. There are also 3 school zone districts that make up different parts of the Woodlands. So different school districts, a lot of different variety in the villages, which makes finding the right location really important.
Not including private schools, but that's another video for another day.
Yeah.
We also have property taxes, but everyone has property taxes, but we have mud taxes as well. We've talked about this before, but that can be added depending on where you're at. Some states may not have mud taxes, but we do. So it's basically just like your utilities. It's literally municipal utility district. So this is just kind of to help pay for them taking care of the water in the streets, the curbs, stop signs, like all these random little things. Depending on what district you're in, it can differ as to what those taxes specifically go to, but that is the gist of it. And so that will be added on top of your standard property taxes, and not everybody knows to look for that. So hopefully you're using us as your realtor, but if you're using someone else, make sure they check for the mud tax as well, because that can be a surprise.
Yes. So funny story. We recently were talking with a client of ours who's relocating from Canada, and one of their must-have items for their new house in the Woodlands, Texas was air conditioning. Fun fact, every house in the Woodlands, Texas is gonna have air conditioning. You have to have it. Why? Summers here are really intense. I believe last summer, there was a nice breeze. Obviously, there's a lot of shade in the Woodlands. The trees keep the humidity down versus what you'd see south of Houston, but it still can be pretty humid, surprising people with that. And we had, I think, 11 days consecutive where the temperature was over 100. So it is very hot. You will have air conditioning, but even in the heat of summer, there are still people who are enjoying their pools, enjoying Lake Conroe, which is not very far north of the Woodlands, going out in the trails, usually in the mornings or the evenings, but there are a lot of walking trails, playing golf. I'll golf in 100-degree weather, but definitely something to keep in mind is you will have AC. That was a fun fact from that story, but also the summers can be intense.
And then another cool thing about the Woodlands is it's basically its own little Houston downtown area in it of itself. So I know some people, whenever they're in different states and they don't know different areas, they might think of Houston and then think of the Woodlands as a suburb city of Houston, but they're really not. You really have Houston and then the loop itself, and then everything outside of that. And then you have the Woodlands as its whole own area. And then kind of the same way Houston has different suburb towns that you can live in and then come into Houston, it is the exact same with the Woodlands. You have Magnolia, Montgomery, Tomball, Conroe, those all center into the Woodlands. So think of it kind of Houston and then Woodlands like this. But the cool thing about Central Woodlands and even some of the other towns just outside of that, it's very much self-contained. So Anything you really need. If you live central Woodlands, there's multiple HEBs, multiple shopping centers, multiple Targets, Home Depots, all the big box stores, of course. And then the cool thing, which we discuss in some of our Instagram, TikTok, YouTube videos, is that they also have different shopping centers. There's Hughes Landing, different restaurants and stuff. You have the Waterway, there's Market Street, there's multiple different little areas, but depending on where you live, you could be walking distance to a larger shopping center or even a smaller one just to get your standard groceries and coffee. It really just depends. But yeah, it is very much its own super city in it of itself.
Yeah, and each village has its own shop commercial. So whether you're in Creekside or if you're in Alden Brit, like all of the different villages are going to have slightly different commercial, but they all have their own, which is another reason why location matters. Trader Joe's, Sprouts, HEB. You're not going to have to go into Houston for a good meal. Like it's all up in the Woodlands.
There is a lot of restaurants in the Woodlands.
A lot of restaurants, which is one thing that a lot of people don't understand is the food scene in the Woodlands specifically is actually really great. There are a lot of very high profile chefs who have restaurants in the Woodlands, a lot of diversity to the menus. There's some great food from different cultures, all in the Woodlands and different parts of the Woodlands. So great food scene. You're not going to be missing out on anything if you live in the Woodlands. You won't have to drive all the way into Houston to get a really high quality date night dinner.
Yeah. And then, yeah, traffic can be any town, anywhere. Obviously, there's more people moving here, so it is going to be bumped up. The data is showing, traffic time to be growing a little bit, but we do try to help our relocators truly pick either a village in the Woodlands or one of the towns that are just outside of it to make sense of the location they're moving to, depending on their job. So normally for commute questions, that's always going to be the focus is what is your address that you have to go to? Do you have to be there at 9 o'clock in the morning till 5? Are you working there 3 days a week or 2 days a week? And then you have some home office time. What do those hours look like? All of that stuff is going to differ as to where we would suggest that you might want to live. But yeah, I'm pretty sure just like anywhere else, depending on what section of where in the Woodlands or smaller towns just outside of that, we would either suggest you be closer to certain major highways or maybe within walking distance to some of your daily grocery shopping type of options. And then you can drive into different restaurants and stuff depending on your lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. And fun fact, the Woodlands actually has a bus system that buses into downtown, so people can take advantage of the Woodlands Express if you want to minimize the time you actually spend in your car.
Downtown, Med Center, everywhere. There's a few different drop-off.
Another fun fact about the Woodlands, and this is somewhat true of all of Texas, but especially here, the HOAs and their community standards are for real. Like they take maintaining the aesthetic and the appeal and the quality of the community very seriously. So if you appreciate that, perfect. If that's something that you're not sure about, if you're coming from a part of the country where HOAs are either very lax or non-existent, that's something to keep in mind is that if you're going to live in a designated neighborhood or even in one of the villages, you are likely to have HOAs restricting certain things like the paint color of your garage door or the type of landscaping you can do. So there are seen as some negatives, but the positives are they keep the neighborhood really clean. They keep it all looking correct to the aesthetics. You don't have a random pink house sitting in the middle of your neighborhood, which nothing against pink houses, but that might not be what you want to look at.
We can find some acreage for you though if you want a pink house.
Exactly. If you want to have a pink house or you don't want any HOA restrictions, there are areas and communities outside of the Woodlands where you would have a lot more.
Yeah, and then the other cool thing that we have really noticed just from living here ourselves and going to different shops, boutiques, getting coffee, going to restaurants, and even just hanging out with our neighbors, is the Woodlands is great just about being family-oriented, friend-oriented, and just community-oriented. Everybody is very friendly. It's very rare that we go somewhere and we just run into somebody where we're like, wow, that was not fun, or they're kind of rude. That's very, very rarely ever happened. Everyone is super friendly everywhere we go. We really enjoy it. And it is kind of nice too, even just going to the restaurants, like even the people that run the restaurants are super just wanting to actually get to know you. It's a great experience. So I will say that too. And just a lot of people are really about being like outside, walking out in the trails and sports, and whether that's official league sports or if it's the people playing soccer out in the field and you can just walk on and play with them. that type of lifestyle usually does tend to attract the type of people that are, willing and more open to make friends with just random strangers. But yeah, that's how people meet, and that's how you can become acclimated into a new community, which is great.
And last thing is, and this is really important, you don't have to actually live in the Woodlands to enjoy the Woodlands lifestyle. So there are tremendous communities just outside of the proper Woodlands 11 villages that are new construction, great price points, great schools, quick access to all the Woodlands shopping and dining, like she mentioned, Hughes Landing, the Waterway, the Woodlands Mall. Like, you can get to all those things very easily. You can eat at the Woodlands restaurants, you can shop at the Woodlands shopping, you can go play sand volleyball at North Shore Park. You can do all of those things without actually having to live in the Woodlands. So depending on your lifestyle, depending on your commute routes, depending on kind of what your priorities are, you have a lot of options in this area where you can still enjoy the trees, the trails, the parks, and all the Woodlands has to offer. There's so many communities just outside the Woodlands that have great golf courses, nature preserves, access to HEB within a golf cart trip. So there's a
Let
lot
them
to
have their own.
which is pretty cool.
And so that being said, we are planning on doing another video to highlight all of the communities, or at least as many as we can fit within a reasonable time. So probably our top favorite communities that we can think of that are local and around the Woodlands loop per se, that we would offer or recommend to any relocators that are wanting to live near the Woodlands, go shopping in the Woodlands, go eat in the Woodlands, participate in just that lifestyle, but they don't want to necessarily live in one of the homes, or they don't like the price range for what they're getting. There's all sorts of reasons why people choose to live just outside of the Woodlands itself, and there are so many great options. So stick around, like, follow, subscribe. We will be touching on that next. So come back and see us.